Oh, hi. I'm Pastor Drew, and this is your Keeping Connected video for March 31st. You might be wondering why I am reading up on spy literature, and that is because today is Spy Wednesday, also known as Holy Wednesday, but when it has a cool name like Spy Wednesday, why would you not call it that? So today's story of Holy Week is not quite as exciting and fun as its name might suggest. But today we remember the story of Judas betraying Jesus when he asked the religious leaders and tried to turn Jesus in, and then they offered to pay him 30 pieces of silver for basically ratting Jesus out. So this is a story that is certainly not my favorite in this season, but it's a story I think is extremely important because when we pray our prayer of confession, we pray that we have rejected God's love. We have fallen short. And Judas's story is really one of misconception, of betrayal, of rejection, and where we don't necessarily know who Jesus is, and we don't often like who Jesus is. A couple weeks ago in his sermon, Pastor Charlie talked about how Jesus is king, and how we don't necessarily expect the kind of king that Jesus is. And that was certainly the case for Judas. Judas wanted a revolutionary king. He wanted Jesus to fight the powers and to use violence. And Jesus was not that kind of king. And so when Judas did not get what he wanted, he resorted to ways of this world. He resorted to bribery. He resorted to violence. And some scholars have said that Judas does this in an attempt to sort of push Jesus and force his hand. Ultimately, Judas is not successful in that. But I think that Judas' story has a lot to tell us. Has a lot to tell us about our own conviction and ways in which we will resort to any means necessary to get what we want. The influence of money and the ways in which money can corrupt us and corrupt our thinking. But also in the story of Judas, we also hear a story of depression. We hear a story of suicide, where Judas is so overwhelmed with guilt that he takes his own life. And I think that it's important for us to see the story of Judas in a way that gives him some empathy, gives him a recognition of he's one of Jesus's disciples. He had the important role of being the treasurer amongst all of them. And so the fact that Jesus calls somebody who he knows is going to betray him, he knows probably struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts before that. And Jesus calls that person too. So no matter what you've done, no matter what things are going wrong, no matter how corrupt things might be, no matter how sad or depressed, or even if you're having suicidal thoughts, that does not mean that you are a part of who Jesus is. The story of Holy Week is a story of God's redemptive offer to all people. No matter how bad you are, no matter how bad you think you are, nobody, not even you, are a part or unable to access God's love and God's forgiveness. And I think that's incredibly good news. And so I hope that you hear that. I hope that you can feel that love of God. And if you can't, and if you're struggling with that today, it's not too late. Give somebody a call. Let us know. Reach out, because no one is apart from God's love. No one, not one person. All of us are welcome. All of us have a piece in this story, even Judas. And so that is my prayer for you. That is my message for you today. And I hope that as we continue through this journey of Holy Week, that you would really sense that redemptive love for yourself, and then perhaps seek to offer that to somebody else. Take care.